You are now listening to 1-900 Old Ladies, The Lost Art of Making Lefse, written by L. Lee Starr, narrated by the author. Post-production by Pinto Media. Chapter 21. Marge rose early the next morning, again hungover. Stan and Rosa were already awake, preparing for the big auction to be held at the barn. The plan was for Rosa to tend to the 900 line, while Marge and Stan did some last-minute setting up for the sale. It was scheduled to begin promptly at 10 a.m. "Morning, Aunt Marge," Stan cheerfully greeted. Marge stumbled into the kitchen. Her eyes were puffy from crying the night before and were red and swollen. She seemed distracted and started searching through the kitchen drawers. She pulled out Ellie's Lefse pin. She pulled out a paper grocery sack, stuffing the pin into the bag. "What's going on, Aunt Marge?" Stan Jr. asked. "I'm going to confess," Marge declared. Stan Jr. looked shaken. "Confess to what, Aunt Marge?" "Murder. Your father was murdered, and I killed him," she stated defiantly. "I just need to figure out where I hid the murder weapon." "Wait a minute, Aunt Marge. You didn't kill Dad." "You couldn't have." She answered her nephew matter-of-factly. She was distracted by her search. "What do you know about it? You just showed up last week. This has been going on for months." She pilfered through a few more drawers. She reached up to clumsily search through the kitchen cabinets. She carelessly and noisily pulled all the pots and pans off their shelves, tossing them on the floor one by one. "Ellie, where did you put it?" She pulled down a stack of clean plates and cast them to the floor, breaking several of them. Stan Jr. tried to stop her. "Now, Aunt Marge, let's not be hasty. Maybe there's another way out of this." "I don't think so, Stan, baby. Somebody killed your father. Somebody's going to have to fry, and I don't want it to be your crazy mother," she declared. After Margie emptied the upper cabinets, she leaned down to the cabinet below the kitchen sink. She removed the box of trash bags. She removed the old box of rat poison. "This box must be 30 friggin' years old. Do they even make this crap anymore?" She set it aside. She leaned her head in to see what still lay under the sink. She pulled out a can of Drano, some SOS pads, and a large box of Arm & Hammer baking soda. "Wait, I see something there." She leaned her ear against the cabinet, reaching as far as she could in the darkness. She grappled for it, whatever it was that lay on the floor, strategically hidden behind everything else. "Bingo," she whispered to herself. Marge retrieved the object and examined it. She opened her palm to discover there, in her right hand, was a yellow-handled Phillips head screwdriver with a 12-inch shaft. And conveniently, still, on its metal shaft, was the dried blood of her slain brother-in-law, Stanley Peters Sr. 15 minutes later, Marge Carter marched into Sheriff Baker's office unannounced. She carried a rolled-up paper sack. "Hi, Marge. What brings you here this time of day? Aren't you both ready to get ready for that auction?" Paul Baker inquired. Marge ignored his attempts at small talk. "I'm here to make a confession, Sheriff," she declared. "A confession?" The sheriff looked puzzled. She dropped the paper sack on the sheriff's desk. She drew in one deep breath and exhaled her entire confession. "Sheriff, I killed Stanley Peters. I piled all his shit in the barn. Then I lured him into the barn and pushed the entire pile of shit on top of him. As he lay helpless, trapped beneath his pile of shit, I whacked him upside the head repeatedly with a Lefse pin, knocking him unconscious. Then I stabbed him in the heart with the screwdriver. It's all in this bag, Sheriff, the murder weapon and the Lefse pin." Spent, Marge drew in another breath and flopped herself down on the chair behind her. "Well," Paul Baker stated thoughtfully, "I'm not sure how to respond to that, Marge. You seem to have thought this thing through quite well." He scratched his chin. "Tell me, what makes you think I believe you, eh?" "What do you mean, Paul?" I'm telling you, I did it. I killed Stanley. He deserved to die. Nobody else was going to do it. He had been abusing my sister for years in this town, and nobody did a friggin' thing about it. Somebody had to, so I did it, Marge stated emphatically. Nope. Paul seemed resolutely unconvinced by her confession. She was clearly taken off guard. What do you mean, nope? Marge, I don't believe you killed Stanley. There's simply not enough evidence. Marge shook her head in disbelief. She stood and leaned over in Paul's face as she spoke slowly. I'm telling you that I killed Stanley Peters. I just told you exactly how I committed the crime, and I even brought you a bag with the murder weapon inside. And you have the nerve to tell me that you don't have enough evidence? Marge was flabbergasted. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Marge. Anyways, how did you know that's how Stanley was killed in the first place? He interrogated. Because I did it. Don't you get it? I wanted to protect my sister, so I did it, she demanded. She pounded her fist down on his desk to emphasize her point. No, you didn't, Paul restated. Yes, I did, Margie argued. Look, Marge, we could go on for days like this arguing. He paused and then suspiciously lifted his brow. Say, this wouldn't have anything to do with the medical examiner from Bismarck, would it? What does that matter? She asked defensively. Well, it seems that I spoke to Jim McDaniel early this morning. You did? Yep. Needless to say, he was a tad bit upset. He stated that you, and I quote, tried to seduce him for information about the case. Paul snickered a bit. Well, yes, she bragged. I did seduce him. And he gave you some confidential information about the report he intended to file, eh? Paul asked. He did, but that doesn't change the fact that I killed Stanley Peters. I had both the means and the motive. Well, if it's any consolation, Marge, I talked Dr. McDaniel into postponing the final release of his report. That is, till we can gather some information, Paul stated. More information? Marge asked. Yeah, I don't know if you realize this, Miss Marge, but you seem to have done a number on poor Jim's heart. I've never seen him as upset about any woman since his ex-wife dumped him. He's a wreck. She grinned bashfully. Really, Sheriff? Oh, yeah. He seems to have it something awful for you. And I'd hate to see you get carted off to jail right now, with the auction and all. And who knows, maybe you might find that you weren't using him so much as maybe you like him too. Well, I can honestly say that I do like him, she confessed. He's dreamy, a little stubborn and pompous, but he's still nice. Anyways, I think now's not the time for a confession. Maybe wait a few days till Miss Ellie gets back and we'll continue our investigation then, eh? He pushed the paper sack back towards Marge. In the meantime, the coroner is going to release Stanley's body for a funeral. Funeral? You mean we're going to have to bury him? Marge asked resentfully. Yeah, and somebody's going to have to break the news to poor Ellie when she gets back. Really, Sheriff? Don't you think she might already know? Marge queried. I'm not sure, Marge. I still don't quite believe that Miss Ellie has it in her to kill her husband. Yeah, I know it was a long time coming for him, but I just can't believe that about her. But something you don't know about me and Jim, Miss Marge, is that we go way back, almost to when he first came here. He's a lot like me. He knows that the law doesn't always work in favor of the good or the innocent. Sometimes you have to bend the rules a little to let the good guy go free. Maybe what we need to do is to convince Dr. McDaniel that if he changes his report, the good guy, or gal, will go free. If we show him how bad an egg old Stanley was, maybe he can figure something out, eh? I don't think I was very convincing, Marge commented. Well, we've still got some time here. His report won't be due for another 4 weeks. Let's see what happens. In the meantime, I'll see you at the auction. I'm interested in seeing what you might fetch for those guns of Stanley's. He's got a set of antique pistols I'm just dying to bid on." Marge quietly picked up her sack of evidence and turned to leave. "Yes, Paul, maybe you'll get lucky on those guns. Maybe you'll get really lucky." After Marge left the jailhouse, Paul Baker opened his manila file folder, which contained the details of Stanley's case. He picked up a yellow flyer, the advertisement for Marge and Ellie's 900 number. He studied the boudoir photo of Margie as he smiled. "Miss Marge," he whispered, "you're still one handsome lady." He thoughtfully gazed out across his desk as he crumpled the advertisement into a compact ball. Then he dropped his yellow wad of paper into his trash bin.